your player just talked about rallying around the defense after North Dakota's last touchdown. Did you see anything on the sidelines like that, and what was your reaction to that?
Well, I think a couple of things happened during the course of the game, including the rallying cry of the defense, but I'm sure everybody had a little bit of a rallying cry at that particular point in time because it was a must-win for us. But I don't think in my years of coaching I've ever been associated with a game that was so lopsided in the first half, yet we were only ahead by 6 points. And those are scary games because you let your opponent stick around with you, and all of a sudden you find yourself not even knowing maybe that the game is closer. And they ran 14 plays, I think, in the first half. And we had time of possession. We had opportunities to score even more points and didn't take advantage of them. And all of a sudden they make a couple of big plays and we're losing. And that's a tough thing to deal with. And one of the things I think has been the true grit, so to speak, of who we are this year is that we've responded to some difficult times and responded in a positive way. And I think they showed that again this week. And that's really what won the game. I think anytime you win a football game, you have the defense. You know, those guys they're the defense, and that's our core and all those things. But wins are wins, and they're won by your team.
And then the question on a lot of students' minds is the injury to Andre Broadus, and what information do you have on that? Do you expect him to play this season?
Oh, he'll play this season. Whether he plays this week still remains to be seen. He's much better today than he was on Friday. I think giving him Saturday and Sunday off is a big help to him. Whether he plays this week or not, we won't put him in a situation where two things. Number one, he can do any injury to himself, and number two, that he plays because he's tough rather than because he's healthy, because that's not good for our football team either. So we will make the decision based on how he progresses throughout the week.
We always talk about the quarterbacks, and of course we always talk about the kicker. So I'll get that off the table. Another tough week for in the kicking game. Any kind of update? Any thoughts on how?
Well, I thought the punter punted pretty well. I mean, those two punts at the end of the game were pretty darn good. Let me go on record as saying that. And he did come back and make a 22-yarder, and it's only a 22-yarder, but I'll give him some credit for that. But if you really looked at it, my decision was based to keep him in the game based on how poorly we were kicking the ball off with the other guy. So we didn't kick the ball very well from that standpoint in either way. And if you watched where they were pressuring us up the middle. And Jake gets the ball up in the air quicker than James does, and that went into the decision as well.
Are you disappointed that that area hasn't improved necessarily, or the status now than back in August? Has that area improved at all?
Well, I think we've been kind of up and down in the entire area, not just kicking the football. Our entire kicking game has been good at point in times. I mean, our kick return team was as good as anybody in the country. And lately we've had penalties on it for illegal blocks. We haven't been as vertical maybe returning the balls maybe we should. It's the Old Dominion game. We muffed a couple of balls. I mean, there were some things that have to get straight on our special teams part of our football team right now. But I think that it's an area that has been up and down. There's been a lot of strengths in it, but it hasn't been all four teams playing the same way on one given Saturday.
There's been a few games now where you've had that statistical advantage. I know Texas State, Southern Utah, where you've had you've kind of beaten them in a number of areas. This was another one. The same theme you've talked about, I know, all year long about finishing off drives. I mean, you're just pounding that in, working with the guys, just saying, hey, we got to get things turned around, or we're gonna start losing some of these games. Well,
it could have been 24-0 at halftime very easily. I mean. They bring a good pressure on a 2nd and 6, which is not a pressure down against an option team. But if you saw Dominic Johnson, he was at least 8 yards behind the defender, and we don't get the ball off. And we pick and choose when we're going to take shots, and that's a shot where if we got a piece of that guy, that ball's a touchdown. It's easily a touchdown. We missed a field goal, and we missed an extra point. So it really easily could have been 24 points for us, and maybe the game's a little bit different. But I do think that the other night, if you looked at our first drive against certain opponents, that's what we need to look like. And it's tough to do that 4 or 5 times in a game. That's 18 plays without making a lot of mistakes that resulted in a touchdown. And what stopped us against Southern Utah, we went 12 plays in about 60 yards, stalled, didn't get it, and missed a field goal and got 0 points. So the ability to start and finish that first drive, I thought Tony managed the offense extremely well, and we weren't explosive in it, but we were extremely efficient in everything that we want to do as an offense. And if you can put a couple of those together, then I think you can get the other team reeling a little bit, and you can pick and choose where you can make some big plays. So that's the next step I think we need to take. I think there were some positives out of last week, but realistically, we have to be able to be efficient enough to understand there might be games when we need 4 drives to be as efficient as our first drive.
What can you tell us about St. Francis? Obviously, it's an opponent that we're very unfamiliar with.
Well, I think, a couple of things. You're looking at probably The head coach is kind of unfamiliar with them, too. So, I mean, we know very little about them other than they've competed well against some good teams in their conference. I mean, last week was probably one of the better games they played against a team that Monmouth that we have seen on film against Old Dominion, and they competed well against Old Dominion. So I think that, I think it's a team that's improving. I think their strength of their football team is defense. Offensively, I think they're going to probably try to grind us a little bit. They're much bigger than we are. Their offensive line, again, is going to be 6'3" and 6'4" and 290 pounds plus. So we'll have our hands full with that respect. We hope our quickness, our speed, and our desire, again, our benefits as a football team against anybody we play, let alone St. Francis.
It may be easy for fans to dismiss this team, and I know certainly that your message to your players this week would be do anything but, right?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that that go into any course of any game, but and it should be the way we play all the time. I mean, we really believe in the Poly way. We believe in the history of Cal Poly football as a team, and I think if you go back 50 years, if that's not motivation for you, I don't know what is. The opportunity to play a game, and there was a lot of young men in 1960 that lost that opportunity to ever play the game again, and our young people have that opportunity this week, and hopefully they cherish that opportunity and understand where Cal Poly's been and some of the things they've gone through, and that will be a huge plus for us. I think secondary, 2010, this is our season, and our season's on the line based on how we play this Saturday. Not in 2 weeks, not in 3 weeks, this Saturday. So again, there's some sense of urgency to playing well and winning the football game.
And I heard you on the radio after the game. You said David is out for the year. Was it a knee injury that he had suffered?
Correct.
How he's such a vital player in so many roles. I mean, how tough a loss is that for you guys?
It's difficult at this point in the season because, he's our guy. I mean, he's the steady eddying force. I mean, he can do anything we ask that position to do. He can catch it. He can run with it. He can block. He can spread out and be a receiver if we need him to do that. He's an extremely valuable part of our offense, and to lose him is going to be difficult. So it'll probably be by committee between Gabe Umo, who we think has got enough athletic talent to be a very good player, Jared Houston, who puts a tremendous amount of speed back on the field, and Blake Page, who probably is the closest thing to Dave as far as being the steady Eddie guy. So those three guys will probably share the position, and we'll see who comes out of next week playing the best.
Talk about what you saw from Tony, and, how do you think he played on Saturday?
I thought he played extremely well early. I thought the first half he was very good. They made some adjustments. We had to counter with some adjustments, and I think overall as an offense, we didn't handle the adjustments extremely well. So it's not, the quarterback's the guy with the ball in his hands. He's the guy at the line of scrimmage, and he takes a lot of the applause, but he also takes a lot of the criticisms. And I think in Tony's case, there were some things that he probably could have done better. But I think that he did some very good things in the first half as far as managing our offense, taking what they gave us, got the ball to the perimeter, and we did a good job with that in the first half. And the other thing he did as the game went on, there were some huge throws that he made to keep drives alive and some good catches by the wide receivers as well. But I think those things are real positives in crunch time. And I think you find out who you are as a quarterback and as a football player when you get to opportunities where a lot's at stake, not just one game, but who you're trying to be in all those things. And I think he stepped up to the plate and made sure that we got the points necessary to win that football game.
I know you briefly talked about it in one of Dave's questions, but Saturday is the 50-year mark of the plane crash. Talk about the significance of that in your eyes and kind of what your message would be to your players about that too.
Well, number one, I think I'm honored. I hope we are all honored to be a part of it. I mean, it was a tragic thing that happened. I think sometimes we definitely mourn all the people that lost their lives in 1960 on the plane crash. But I think also that really you have to consider is the people that lived and what they've done with their lives. And if you look at the 10 people that are still surviving now and what they're doing and how successful they've been, it really, to me, speaks strongly about the things that they learned and the things that they went through and how they persevered. Those are lifelong lessons that they're teaching young people and how special your opportunities are. When we go touch that rock, I hope we're just not touching a rock. When we take a walk around the memorial, I hope we're just not taking a walk around the memorial. I hope we think and understand exactly how fortunate we are to have the opportunity to play football at Cal Poly and understand the struggles that went through a lot of people's lives in 1960, both with our community, the families that lost young people, and the young people that survived.